Any final action taken on conditional use permit requests will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless there's a written appeal filed in the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Office by February 4th at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on February 19th at 9 a.m. Meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. Any final action on the zoning text amendment application taken tonight will be referred to the County Commission for a public hearing on February 19th at 9 a.m. Again, the County Commission will meet in this same room. Action taken on a variance may be appealed to the Circuit Court in a manner and form as provided by the statutes of the state of South Dakota. The Planning Commission will need to convene as the Board of Adjustment to consider item number 1 on the agenda. After this item, the Planning Commission will reconvene for the rest of the items on the regular agenda. Okay, so now we're going to, and that's on the consent agenda too. Okay, so now we're meeting as the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And did anybody here have any objections to item number 1 on this zoning board? Okay. Item number 1, oh, I need a motion to approve it.
Move the consent agenda for the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'm going to read this, and if anybody in the audience has an objection, then you can let me know. It's a variance to allow a reduced lot size in the A1 Agricultural District, and this is located 3 miles west of Garrettson. Does anybody have any objection to this variance? Okay. So do we have to take a motion on this? Now we need a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's been approved. If you're here for that variance, you'll leave. Okay, now we will consider the consent agenda for the Planning Commission, and that agenda includes the minutes from November 26, 2012. And are there any objections from the Planning Commission to any item listed on the consent agenda? Okay. Can I have a motion to, let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to read through them. Okay, item number 3 is a zoning ordinance text amendment to amend section 19.00 of the 1990 revised zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County. This request is, okay, we already said that, to recall and review of conditional use permits by the Planning Commission. That's what that ordinance will be about. Item number 4, zoning ordinance text to amend section 12.03 and add section 27.00 to the 1990 revised zoning ordinance. This will better define businesses allowed as home occupations and require a permit for minor home occupations. Any objections to that one? Okay, number 5, a conditional use permit to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building area. 2176 is requested, and this was 2 miles west of Hartford. All right. Item number 6, a conditional use permit to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building area. 2240 was requested, and this is 1.5 miles southeast of Crooks. Item number 7 is a conditional use permit to allow the transfer of 1 residential building eligibility, and this is 3.5 miles south of Humboldt. Item number 8, a conditional use permit to allow an agriculturally related operation, an agronomy plant with storage and distribution of anhydrous ammonia. This will be 2.7 miles north of Colton. All right, we'll be moving that one. Conditional use permit to allow retail sales, service, display, and manufacturing of agricultural products, and this is going to be located at the Crooks exit on I-29. Item number 10, a conditional use permit to allow the transfer of 1 residential building eligibility, 1.5 miles east of Sioux Falls. And I just need to make a little mention that on this one, the conditions required approval of a driveway by Split Rock Township, but that needs to be changed to approval of a driveway by Minnehaha County. that right, Ryan? All right. And was there any objections on that one? Okay. And then item number 11 is a rezoning from A1 agricultural to the Meadows planned development. And that is on the northwest edge of Hartford. That's going to be deferred to the February 25th meeting? Okay. So other than item 8, was there anybody that wanted anything else moved? All right, so now I need to have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. If one of your items was the items we just discussed, those items have all been approved and you are free to leave because they've been approved as part of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, for the regular agenda, we'll follow the normal hearing process by requesting the planning staff to present the item. Then the petitioner will come up and make a statement or answer questions. Anyone from the audience wishing to address an item will then be recognized by the chairman, move to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Following public testimony, then the planning commission will discuss the matter and take appropriate action. Thank you. Okay, we'll start out with item number 8.
Good evening, I'm Scott Anderson, the Planning Director, and I'm here to present the staff report for Conditional Use Permit 13-8. This is a request for a conditional use permit to allow agriculture-related operation, which is an agronomy plant, with the storage and distribution of anhydrous ammonia. And the property is located approximately 2.75 miles north of Colton, at the intersections of County Highway 104 and 149. As I indicated in the staff report, both of these uses are identified in the list of conditional uses within the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance under the agriculture district as 3.04X and 3.04Z. Overall, the site encompasses approximately 60 acres, and the majority of the activity will be occurring on 18 acres of property located quite close to the intersection of Highway 104 and 149. The balance of that 60 acres will be used for the construction of a railroad track loopage, and the rail line that goes up to Wentworth runs along the east side of this property, between the property and the county highway. The applicant's proposing to put in a rail spur, and they have shown that on the site plan, which we'll look at in a minute. The applicant is Eastern Farmers Co-op, which is a division of CHS Incorporated and is a farmer-owned cooperative. The customers served by the cooperative are also the owners, and the applicant has indicated they'd like to construct a full-service agronomy center which would handle, store, and distribute farm supplies, including crop nutrients, seed, and crop protection materials. At this site, crop nutrients would be primarily brought in by rail. The site would handle liquid crop nutrients and hydrous ammonia, and also market corn and soybean seeds and seed treatment products. The crop protection products would be packaged in bulk for farm use. The Eastern Farmers Co-op has a large variety of application equipment, which they will also use to apply their products for their customers. And the storage and maintenance of that equipment will also be at this site. On January 10th, I conducted a site visit of the property. Overall, the area is very agricultural in nature. There is an existing church located at the northeast intersection of County Highway 104 and 149, and there are 3 existing farmsteads located within approximately half a mile of the site. One farm is located directly to the north across the road, and then there are 2 that are located to the northwest, which you can see on the screen. I did route the request to the County Highway Department for review, as the primary access to both to this site is off of a county highway, and I actually then met with representatives from the county highway, the highway superintendent, and DJ Boothie and Shannon Schultz, our county highway engineer, on January 15th to discuss the proposed use and impacts it might have on the county highway system. Several items were discussed, such as the need for a grading, drainage, and utility plan in order to determine what impacts there might be on the county highway system. Shannon Schultz, our county highway engineer, prepared a report outlining issues and concerns, and I've included that report in the packet for your review. Staff is recommending that prior to construction, the applicant submit a drainage, grading, and utility plan to the county highway engineer for review and approval. The report also recommended that runoff from the entire parcel should not exceed the existing 5-year and 100-year flow rates. The drainage plan should show the contours along with the existing and proposed drainage patterns, and that would also be submitted to the county highway engineer for review and approval. As you know, all conditional use permits, we look at a number of areas to see how they comply and how they impact and meet the needs and concerns of the county, and I'll go over those. The first is that we look at the effect upon the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity and for the uses already permitted and upon the property values of the immediate vicinity. It's my findings that it is unlikely that there will be significant impacts on the use or enjoyment of the surrounding properties or the property values. The areas surrounding the subject property is currently used for agriculture, and this is ultimately an agricultural business servicing the agricultural industry in the area. Number two, what are the effects upon the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area? This subject property fits well into what we would call a rural service area. It is located at the intersection of 2 paved county highways and furthermore has direct rail access to the property. It is also located approximately 8 miles west of an interstate interchange, and thusly an agriculture-related business fits well into that area. The agricultural community should benefit from the new business activity produced by this site. Number 3, are there utilities, access roads, and drainage and other facilities which have been provided? It appears that some of the facilities and the railroad track may be located in some potentially wet areas. The applicant may be required to obtain permits to fill or alter any federally designated wetlands. This is a burden that the applicant is required to research and to meet if there are any wetlands. The only vehicular access to the site will be from County Highway 104. And as I indicated, prior to the construction of the new approach, the applicant shall obtain an approach permit from the County Highway Department. There will be sensitive materials stored on the site, staff recommends that a security fence be installed around the perimeter of the site, and the fence shall be a minimum of 6 feet tall, and the applicant may also use barbed wire on top of the fence for protection if they so deem it's necessary. Number 4, we are required to look at this use and determine that all off-street parking and loading requirements are met. Article 15.20 of our zoning ordinance requires 2 off-street parking spaces for each 3 employees on the maximum shift, plus space to accommodate all trucks and other vehicles used in connection with the use. The applicant the application did not indicate the number of employees on the maximum shift, and at this point they may not even know what that number is. Staff is recommending that the off-street parking requirements outlined in Article 15.20 be met as part of the recommended conditions of approval. Furthermore, the applicant will be required to pave the parking areas and the driveways and the parking areas located on the site as they are coming off a hard surface road. Staff recommends that the applicant follow the minimum improvement and maintenance standards for driveways, parking lots, and loading, unloading areas as outlined in Article 15.4 of the zoning ordinance, and that's part of the recommendations of approval. And lastly, we look at what kind of impacts are going to, or what kind of measures are taken to control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and lighting, inclusive of lighted signs, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance. The proposed use will create some noise and dust, but that amount should be not significant enough to constitute a nuisance. The applicant may have security lighting, and any lighting should meet the standards typically required by the Planning Commission and are designed to reduce light pollution. The lighting must be like a shoebox style that directs the light downward. Based on what the applicant has submitted for information and the proposed area and the agricultural uses in the area, staff is recommending approval and feels that this use is appropriate to the area. The proposed use will provide service to a greater agricultural community. Staff is recommending approval of conditional use permit 1308 to allow an agriculturally related operation, which is the agronomy plant, with the storage and distribution of anhydrous ammonia and associated railroad loading track with 10 conditions, and I will read those conditions for you as the Planning Commission and the audience as well. Number 1, that a minimum of 14 off-street parking spaces be provided and that they meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Number 2, all exterior lighting shall be of a shoebox style that directs the light downward. Number 3, all signage installed by the applicant on County Highways 104 and 149 shall meet or exceed the requirements of the 2009 edition of the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Number 4, that 2 off-street parking spaces for each 3 employees on the maximum shift, plus space to accommodate all trucks and other vehicles used in connection with the use be provided. Number 5, that the applicant follow the minimum improvements and maintenance standards for driveways, parking lots, and the loading, unloading areas as outlined in Article 15.4 of the Minnehaha County Zoning Ordinance. Number 6, that the applicant shall obtain an approach permit from the County Highway Department for the approach onto County Highway 104. Number 7, that prior to construction, the applicant submit a grading, drainage, and utility plan to the County Highway Engineer for review and approval. Runoff from the entire parcel should not exceed the existing 5-year and 100-year flow rates. Number 8, all pipes used in the county right-of-way shall be sized to handle the flows in the ditch and shall be sized by the applicant or the applicant's engineer. The pipe shall be concrete pipe RCP with flared ends and tie bolts. The applicant size, type, and location within the right-of-way shall be reviewed and approved by the County Highway Department prior to installation. Number 9, that a security fence be installed around the perimeter of the site. The fence shall be a minimum of 6 feet tall, and the applicant may also use barbed wire on top of the fencing. Number 10, that a maximum of 2 4x8 on-premise signs, which may be lighted, shall be allowed with the issuance of a sign permit. And I did take some pictures, and I'll go over the pictures with you. I think this is probably the best picture for you to sort of get an idea of the site. It is at the intersection, as I indicated, of 104 and 149. This is a picture that was provided by the applicant. This is also an by the applicant, the Eastern Dakota, what's it called here? Eastern Farmers Co-op, a Magnolia Ag Center, which was recently constructed in Minnesota. They provided this to show what potentially theirs would look like, which would be very similar to this one. This is the general site plan provided by the applicant. You can see the blue rail loopage and the driveways into the site, which are shown in red, and then the facility which would have access onto the rail loop, onto the rail line. This is property looking to the northeast, which is the church. This is the site looking directly to the south. And this is sort of towards the southwest. This is the property that's located directly across the road. And then this is on the county highway looking directly west, and you can see one residence on the south and one on the north side. And those are the pictures I took. It's very difficult to see. It's basically, a farm field right now. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Madam Chair, another question. I didn't hear you mention anything about meeting all DNR requirements, since this is a fertilizer plant. State requirements.
I suppose you could put that in there. I'm sure they would be required to anyway, but I didn't think about that as well.
You often have days and hours of operations in your conditional uses, but I don't see any in here.
Well, and given the nature of the business, I didn't put any in there because I'm sure that in the summer when they're busy, their peak season, they could be, running all different times of the day and night.
Okay.
If you as a commission felt that, it's something that would help the neighbors, then you also could put the conditions, hours of operation in there.
Scott, did they say how many trucks would be coming?
They did not indicate that.
Okay, and is there any thought about a gate as well as a fence?
Well, I'm assuming there would be a gate. There's going to be some kind of security as part of the fencing.
Anything else for Scott? Okay, thanks. Is somebody here from Eastern Farmers?
I was going to kind of do an overview. My name is Tony Van Overshield. I'm the agronomy manager for Eastern Farmers. So kind of how this gets set up is we have a board. We meet with the board, cover some of the stuff till we get closer to the project, and this would be the project that we agreed on or talked about in the boardroom. Just kind of give you some background why we're looking at building. We got a couple existing plants. Eastern Farmers is kind of around Sioux Falls area. We're a division of CHS. Two of the plants we're looking at is the Crooks facility, which is in town, and Baltic's facility. They're both old 1960-some-year-old plants. We need to get something upgraded. So basically, in this day and age, what we're doing is consolidating in one big plant, trying to get it out in the country. So history shows if we get this up and going, we'll dissolve them two plants in town. Why would I say another reason for a bigger plan is we need to handle more products. With the farmers being progressive as they are, it used to be NPK, urea, DAP, potash. Now we're looking at Petalime, AMS, and so on. And the other reason for these big plants and why we're located where it's at is we first look at on a rail line. When you look at the city of Sioux Falls, we're trying to get outside of the city of Sioux Falls because we're looking at a plant 20, 30 years down the road. When you look at Baltic, that rail line is LG Elvers line, so that's out of the question, plus it's along the river. When you look at Crooks, to end up where we ended up on this map, when you look at Crooks and start following the line north, this was the best suited place we could find. To kind of give you an idea of what we look for is no homes on the property, so basically finding what you call a long quarter. Rail without crossing highways. Kind of what we're looking at, what I mean by that would be like the Lions facility, the grain facility, which isn't ours, but where that crosses the highway. We were looking for a rail that you didn't have to cross the highway. Basically, it comes in on the line, does a circle on the main track, they hook up the back of the train, and then they leave again, so you don't have to block any major highways. Then kind of what we're doing when we're looking for the plant site also is, honestly, if you go Colton south, we're having problems with the Skunk Creek floodplain, and you're also looking for flatter ground, and we couldn't find nothing along there that was suitable. So as you look at this plant, the blue is the rail. We expect probably to this point to be like 5 trains a year, plus some single cars. When we say 5 trains, a lot of the urea comes in from Galveston, and the phosphate comes from Florida, and we need to be at about 85 cars. We have 24 hours to unload them. Usually we get them unloaded in 16. At that time frame, you call BN, they come and jump in the train, they leave again. Facility that isn't on here that would be comparable to is the Worthing Ag Center, which is south of Worthing. We built that one about 9 years ago. The loop track would be similar to that. Is there a way to get to that Magnolia plant? So the reason I picture this is just kind of give you people what it looks like from the outside. So this facility, we got the Worthing Ag Center down south. That would be what the loop track would look like. But the reason I pictured the Magnolia Ag Center is from an eye appeal. It would look a lot like this with the big building. That one is about a 13,000 ton plant. We haven't put full specs on this plant, but I'm guessing this one would be about twice the size. The height would be the same, but it'd be longer. But starting where the blue tower is and go with that would be north towards the road, all that would be the same. 2 driveways. Usually what we do on both sites is we have a security fence. You would ask about a gate. What we do is we have a code gate that at 5:36 we decide when it can close. It closes, and then what you call senior type employees have the padlock code that you can change whenever. To plug in the code, it's usually a 4-digit code. That opens up the gate. And then if there's some more employees, what that does is it closes behind you after hours. And then as you pull up the gate from the back side, it opens up again. On that facility, as you can see, this would be set up similar. You got a seed shed. Behind it would be that anhydrous plant that we're talking about. Then a fuel site, and then the main building. Just to finish up with the state, usually before you build anything, we have to be all according to state codes. And the hydrous has to be all the state codes. They have, most of the state codes, you have what they call fast release valves. Basically, it's like a fuel pump. If anything pops along the way, the pressure of the anhydrous locks it shut. That's about all I have on that plant. Can't see them yet. Planting trees around it except for right in front. And honestly, the main thing that we looked for why we picked this site was the rail and the not having to go across a highway. That's all I have.
Do you anticipate operating on Sunday?
I can never say never. I've been with the company for 15 years. We've never been on a Agronomy site open on Sunday. Like I said, we follow a lot about with the farmers. Our busy season would probably be 2 to 3 weeks in the spring. That's when farmers are planting. A lot of times there it's 6 days a week from sun up to sundown. What I would say is a norm, usually July 1. The Saturdays start crunching down. You're doing a little bit of spraying. Usually July 1 till fall fertilizer season, which is November. It's 5 days a week, 7 to 5, 8 to 6, depending on what's kind of going on. Then when I say fall, during fall, once the crop goes out, you probably have 10 days of spreading fertilizer. Nothing like spring, but spreading fertilizer. You're probably open some Saturdays there. And then as soon as the ground freezes, which would be Thanksgiving, you go back to 5 days a week, 8 to 5, until March or April. The only thing that would change is if one of them trains come in. Somebody had asked about the number of trucks. On this facility, there will be some wholesale. Eastern as a whole, we're usually mostly retail, but there will be some wholesale here. Usually on the busy side, I'm using Worthing as an example. On the busy side, during the heat of spring, on the wholesale side, you'd be looking at probably 40 semis a day. That's what you call a busy day. So that would be the 7-8 days right in the heat of spring. Otherwise, the retail, you probably this is basically not going to be as big retail as Worthing. So when you look at this facility with what we have from a farmer's base and stuff, you're probably looking at, on the retail side, 30 to 50 trucks in and out, that's a guess. Basically, we'd be running 3 floaters out of there. That's where I'm coming up with that number.
Any other questions for Tony?
So, I'm to understand that once this is up and running, you're thinking that you'd close the Baltic location and then, the
Correct.
other one was...
History shows, we got to go through the board approval, but it's been talked about. History shows when we built Worthing Ag Center down south, We closed the 2 plants in Canton, closed the 1 in Harrisburg, closed the 1 in Hurley. When we built the Magnolia Ag Center, we closed Ellsworth, 2 in Laverne, and 1 out in the country. It was an old single plant along the interstate.
Okay. So basically this truck traffic and activity is taking place in these other 2 locations, and I'm sure you're building for some growth. So
Yes.
If you say 40 semis a day during the busy season, is that what you expected to grow to, or do you think you're experiencing about 40 now in those 2 locations?
Basically 40 at Worthing right now. Worthing's what I call the hub. When you look at the map, Worthing pretty much covers the whole south side of Sioux Falls. Magnolia covers our Minnesota, a little bit into South Dakota. Garrettson facility covers into about, there's some flip-flop, but if you take that Renner Oil north, Garrettson kind of covers that.
Okay.
So this way, this would cover kind of what you call northwest of Sioux Falls. And again, for our perfect spot, this is probably a little bit too far north, but there's, as far as when you're trying to look at rail access from Colton, Wisconsin Creek, and houses and stuff, like, not easy.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anybody from the audience that wishes to make any comments?
I'd like to speak.
Okay.
My name's Bob Vanderlinde. I live at 46408 246th Street. My north pasture is directly across from the south side of the property. My house is right on the corner there. I've kind of taken a look at the ag. The X he cited is for agricultural operations involving the handling, storage, and shipping of farm products. These are not farm products. These are products that are brought in to be distributed to farms. I mean, urea and stuff like that, that's not a farm product. I think this ordinance was really written for distribution of crops, not for bringing in truckloads of chemicals to be mixed on site and sold as anhydrous and other chemicals. I really see the site as just a whole mess of concentrated chemicals that could spill. If you think that dust isn't a problem, maybe you should be out there when the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour and see what's happening that way. I do have a signed list of opposition from quite a few of the abutters and residents that live within a mile. If I could submit that to the commission, I would. It merely states that we're objecting to the planned use. I'm just a little scared about the composition of the materials that are there. I've got a little understanding of what they are, and I'm a little bit more concerned about water runoff. The county is already talking about putting in the big concrete culverts. That water is going to run right across my pasture. In looking through the application, I see the highway department said that there was probably going to be a grain terminal built on the facility within the next 5 to 10 years. So that would be a lot more truck traffic at that time, a lot more blinking lights. It would be a circus tree or a Christmas tree looking at my yard. So those are pretty much my objections. I think some of the other people would like to speak too. Thank you.
Bob, do you want to drop that list off up here and I'll pass it down? Does anyone else wish to speak? Go ahead. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Rick Ramstead. I'm an attorney. I represent Doug and Louise Hansen. They reside at 46392 254th Street. That is the property that is directly north of the subject area of this hearing. There are certainly a lot of concerns that were raised tonight with respect to this operation, and they raise probably more questions than they answer. And I want to take an opportunity to talk to you about the questions and the concerns that Doug and his family and probably a lot of his neighbors have with this operation as well. I've had an opportunity to review the staff report that was prepared for you. The description of this operation, as it was related to us through the planning office, is about 1 paragraph long. It doesn't give us any indication with respect to what will be happening on this property with respect to its volumes, its truck traffic, which was briefly gone into here. The primary concern, I think, for this board should be issue number 5, the noise and the emissions and the odors and the things of that nature, specifically as they relate to anhydrous ammonia. Anhydrous ammonia has been classified by the United States Department of Transportation as an extremely hazardous material. It's one of the most dangerous substances used in modern agriculture, and exposure to anhydrous ammonia can cause burns to the throat and lungs, burns and blisters, and even death. There are some things that you probably should know about anhydrous ammonia that make it especially dangerous. It's lighter than air, but when it's released suddenly, it aerosolizes and forms a cloud of vapor, and that vapor hugs the ground and spreads along low-lying areas. Releases of anhydrous ammonia historically have come from equipment failures, from accidents, and from people stealing it to manufacture methamphetamine. It is a substance that is looked at closely by the Department of Homeland Security because of its caustic nature and the extreme public safety issues that arise around it. A single release of anhydrous ammonia causes the potential for serious harm to the public health and safety, and it's this board's obligation to consider the public health and safety with respect to this issue. There's been some discussion previously regarding regulation and permits and approvals and things like that, and I'd just like to take a second and outline how this all really works. First of all, the United States Department of Transportation regulates the shipment of anhydrous ammonia, whether it be by rail, by truck, by pipeline, or whatever. That's regulated by the United States Department of Transportation. OSHA regulates workplace safety and what goes on in terms of the employer and employee and safety on the work site. The EPA regulates the design and maintenance of the facility. That is, what kind of tanks are we going to use, what kind of hardware and apparatus are going to be used to handle this, and the quick disconnects and things of that nature. The South Dakota legislature has delegated the authority to the administrative branch of government to regulate site placement for anhydrous ammonia facilities. The state of South Dakota administratively has not regulated site placement. The site placement issue falls squarely at the local level. South Dakota has enacted one rule regarding anhydrous ammonia, which basically says we adopt all of the federal regulations regarding anhydrous ammonia. The federal regulations do not regulate site placement. The one exception to that is the proximity to wells. I think that there's a minor regulation with respect to how close you can put a storage facility next to a well. Minnehaha County has no ordinance in place that specifically regulates anhydrous ammonia, but like I said, the comprehensive plan does impose a duty upon this board to consider the public health and welfare. In this case, there has been virtually no consideration to site placement based upon the health and safety perspective of this substance. We've heard a little bit with respect to traffic and highways and the community and the neighborhood, but nothing with respect to the situation as to whether or not, what would happen, whether or not this was released. Because a 6-foot security fence will not stop the plume of anhydrous ammonia as it drifts, if it drifts north across the road. The threat in this particular case, the Doug Hansen and Louise Hansen, really depends upon which way the wind is blowing on a particular day, whether it's day or night. But what we don't know, and why this board can't assess this risk, and why we can't assess this risk wholly, is we don't know how much ammonia is going to be stored at this facility. We have seen a picture of the Magnolia plant. We've heard reference that it's perhaps more similar in size and traffic to the Worthing plant, but we have nothing with respect to how much of this particular substance is going to be there and what kind of reaction it would take to respond appropriately to an accidental or catastrophic discharge of this material. We don't know whether or not the emergency responders in this location of the county, which is towards the very north, are equipped to deal with a disaster response of the magnitude that could be created, because we don't know what magnitude could be created. We know now a little bit more that they're consolidating multiple facilities and expect it to get larger. But what does happen in these situations when there are catastrophic failures is people are injured, people are killed, and property is destroyed. We don't know in this particular case whether or not this product will be arriving by rail or by truck. It comes both ways. In 2002, a train derailed near Minot, North Dakota. 5 tanks of ammonia burst catastrophically. The vapor spread 5 miles downwind over a major population. Emergency responses couldn't go out. There were no sirens that people could hear. It did cause a death. It caused 322 injuries of some sort, including those to first responders, millions in property damage, and $8 million in environmental cleanup costs. Those are the kind of things that can happen. And if we don't even know what quantity of this substance we're dealing with, you can't begin to assess the impact that it might have on the people who live right in the shadow of this facility. I think that the concern that from the Highway Department report that they're somewhat concerned about an increase in truck traffic is something that bears further inquiry. We don't know exactly what kind of impact we will have from this. We don't know whether this substance is coming by rail or by ground. The highway engineer characterizes Highway 104 as spare at best. This is a narrow, paved rural road with no shoulders that's going to experience a significant amount of truck traffic at periods of time. What is the impact on the county's bridges? What are the issues that are going to be addressed there with this kind of traffic? We don't know the answers to this. What I can tell you, though, is Minnehaha County has an emergency management department, and it does not appear that this board has received any input from that entity with respect to what we're dealing with. They or have the resources to themselves or through others conduct hazard analysis on this. Plans if there are emergency response issues. These types of agencies that do this use modeling to figure out if there is a leak, where will the plumes go? I can tell you that in the spring, the prevailing wind is from the south in this situation. We've heard earlier that the majority of this activity is going to occur in the spring. This is going to, with a south wind, create an issue with respect to my client's property. I would just suggest to you that this is the time to look at these issues, because you're not approving anything other than this use, but the extent to which this use is allowed to exist and its size has dramatic impacts on its danger to the community. The larger the operation gets, the more widespread it becomes. It would be possible to overwhelm you with information regarding the hazards of anhydrous ammonia, and I don't want to do that. But what I did do was print out just a few pages of the 2012 Emergency Response Guidebook, and I can provide those to you. But what this does is tells emergency responders how they should react to anhydrous releases. And a release of a large scale is considered 55 gallons or more, and that's in the document. But depending upon what it's released from, what the capacity is, they evacuate people, depending upon the wind condition, anywhere from a tenth of a mile to 1.3 miles. It all depends upon the various atmospheric conditions. The lower the wind, actually, the more dangerous the substance becomes, because the plume of it doesn't drift and evaporate nearly as quickly. So, and at nighttime, with different inversions and things like that, the recommendations even go up. So I would offer just this little few pages of this book to illustrate the point that we don't necessarily really know what we're dealing with here, and the ramifications of it are very significant. And we would urge you to reject the recommendation that it be approved pending the resolution of these and then more answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I'll speak.
I'm Leo Ross from, my address is 46335 246th Street. I'm the property that's just pull your nose straight down, right there, okay? And I don't want to, I guess, take up a bunch of your time, but anytime somebody wants to put a fertilizer plant next to your house, I mean, that's a huge concern, because you are going to have, you know, smells, odors, 6-foot-high fence. You know, it's going to take away from my property value and my enjoyment of my property. But the point I'd like to get at is that I don't think this plant's necessary. There's a plant that's 5 miles north of this facility in Chester, South Dakota, that sells seed, fertilizer, the same kind of goods that they're getting here. And then 2 miles south, Colton Elevator has the same products. I mean, I can't see that this is a necessary expansion for a Minneapolis-based company. I just don't see that it's necessary to put this in my backyard. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Connie Fetters, and my address is 24487 464th Avenue. I live right next door to the Hansons, and this plant is going to be built right across from them. I have an in-home daycare, kids that play outside. We just don't want this around, the chemicals around. I have concerns. The people I do daycare for have concerns. I'm a single parent, and this is how I make my living. And having the chemicals and stuff, people aren't going to want to bring their kids to some place where right across the road is this big plant. So I hope you take that into consideration.
Anybody else? Okay. Tony, would you answer a couple questions for me? We did talk a little bit about the anhydrous ammonia, but can you kind of explain a little bit more about how much anhydrous ammonia will be on the site and what your safety features are? I know you talked about it a little bit, but maybe to allay some of the concerns about that.
I guess
Address it, I should say.
as far as how the anhydrous comes in, most of the anhydrous comes in, well, all the anhydrous comes in from the south, Sergeant Bluff, Port Neal, down Sioux City. So economics, that's where that comes up from. The B-end railroad, which runs this, don't usually like bring in, not saying they never, but they usually don't bring anhydrous in on rail. But just from the location, down south Sioux City is where all the anhydrous comes from. A little bit out of Spencer, Iowa.
So does it come in on rail?
No, truck.
Okay.
As far as the security, so the fence would go around the actual site, so where the rail is, that would be crop ground on the corners and inside the circle. As far as anhydrous, we follow, like I said, the state, the CHS code, federal. Honestly, I'm planning on anhydrous. I'll probably put anhydrous. That's farmers want anhydrous. The reason that anhydrous is brought up now is just from the standpoint at the Worthing Ag Center down there. We built the fertilizer plant and then came back with anhydrous, and I didn't think that was fair. And for the rezoning, initially, what I would say from the tons that they go through would be a 30,000 gallon tank.
Okay. Like the storage of it and the safety features so that it doesn't.
So I'm not an expert on it.
Okay.
I don't claim to be an expert, but basically on them tanks, what they have is they have a fast release valve underneath the main part of the tank. They have a release valve in between where the trucks load, and then where they fill them nurse tanks, there's what you call a quick release valve. And I'm not sure if I'm using the term, but what I mean by release valve is if anything breaks or pops apart and there's a rush of gas, it locks up.
All right, does anybody else have any questions for Tony?
Tony, have you guys made any effort to contact the neighbors, and have they made any effort to contact you about their concerns?
I contacted some of them. Basically, me and another employee, Luke, was running around. I've seen some of them. If they were home, I tried to catch them that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think I probably caught half of them, 3/4.
One thing, and I don't know, because you said you will probably close the Baltic and the Crooks plant, and you have anhydrous at both of those facilities now?
We basically pulled Baltic had anhydrous. We pulled that out a year ago. Due to the new EPA guidelines, they're supposed to have a data plate on it. That one came from the old rules. CHS policy is that you need the data plate, and it was just easier from us to dismantle it. So a few tons that we use, we pull out of the Worthing Ag Center. But that was just we knew that we were going to try and get something put together instead of trying to dump investment back in the Baltic.
My comment, I mean, people, were worried about safety, but if there was anhydrous in towns, it's a whole lot higher risk of safety than out in the country.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
can I ask Mr. Ramstead a question or two?
Sure.
Are you aware of any contact between your client and the proponents of this project?
I am aware that they've spoken with.
Is there any way that their concerns could be reduced by further discussion?
I don't think discussion would resolve it. I think an analysis of this situation and the information that you need to make an analysis is what needs to happen.
Thousands of farmers are using anhydrous ammonia, and considering the severe danger you've described, should it be banned?
I don't make that policy. It's just a matter of where you should locate a site like this that stores that substantial
How about small
quantity.
quantities at thousands of locations with semi-professionals handling it? That would be our regular farmers.
It's an extremely dangerous chemical, and I expect that many of the farmers in this room know that it is extremely dangerous. It's the accidents that can happen, the thefts of it that can happen, and the amounts, if released, that cause the issue. And we're within a few hundred feet of a residential structure here.
Well, if I might, one more point, I guess. You probably have seen the Freedom to Farm covenant that we require residential people to sign before they build a house out in the county, right?
I'm familiar with that.
Okay, well, that talks about noise, dust, equipment, and all that kind of stuff that's part of the normal operation of agriculture in our county. do you feel that this is outside of that, or is this something?
I expect that this site predates your covenant, and I think that your obligation to consider the health and safety of every member of the public should lead you to conclude that you don't know what the risk of a possible leak at this facility is and how it will impact that property. And that is information that you can at least make, using some assumptions, determine, but to which this point has not happened.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or motions or?
I'll start with Madam Chairman. Well, no matter how you look at this, I've been doing this for quite a while. Commissioner Barth will be dealing with this at another meeting in the near future. So the way I look at these things is, so if it happens, what's the best way it can happen? Because it is appropriate for the location, given that, yes, they have plants in Chester and they have plants in Colton, but life goes on. Business grows, things change. And after you mentioned it, I do know that the South Dakota requirements relative to fertilizer licensing, all those safety precautions are put in place. You just don't go out here and start pumping anhydrous whenever you feel like it. And I've actually put on anhydrous, which is kind of scary, thinking that I was putting on anhydrous because I know it's nasty stuff. Anybody who's been around it at all knows that. And you have to follow very stringent safety requirements to do that. My only concern on this deal would be kind of what we dealt with at Lyons without really realizing it, and you're putting a major facility on county roads is probably my biggest concern. Because once again, now we got to rebuild these county roads, which will happen. We kind of rebuilt the road through Lyons. He didn't think we needed a left turn lane. I remember that, the county, but we made them put in a left turn lane. So as I look at it, to me, that's my biggest concern. The other concern I have is the fact that we do require everything to be paved, from at least you get some dust control for the people across the road. That's extremely important to me. So, having said that, I guess I would support this at this time.
One comment. Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to make the comment that we really look at the land use factors too. We can really consider the economics of putting competing businesses together. Our committee isn't here to address that. We're here to address whether this is an appropriate placement of an agricultural related operation. So
I was just going to move for discussion, Will, to move approval of this conditional use permit.
Okay, did you want any extra conditions as written?
Yeah, I don't think, their hours of operation, he explained what they were going to be. I don't think those are reasonable. And if we do, I guess we could put in there number 11 to meet the DENR requirements, but they have to. Whether we say it or not, they have to.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to approve this with the conditions as written. All right.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
I would ask staff a question, I guess. Do they need a turn lane?
Well, that's why I specifically brought in the county highway engineer, because we discussed the Lyons grain elevator, and they felt that this was, at this point, not enough traffic to warrant that. That's why they actually included the traffic count. It was probably the least traveled road in the county, and the county highway engineer and county superintendent said that there had even been discussion of reverting this back to gravel because it's so underutilized, but this will help keep that utilized better, is what their comments were to me. And I think they sort of reflect that in the staff report. If they wanted a turn lane, they would have asked for one.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. This was a county commission. All right, now we're going to go to item number 10.
We need that,
No.
we need the petition and we'll submit it on to the county commission. So
Oh.
we need to put it in the record.
The staff will submit that to the county commission for you.
Submit it. And if somebody has the other copy from Rick
That was a
Ramsey,
well-done petition.
if you can just keep one copy.
This?
Yeah, we just need the one. And Suzie, my petitioner's in the back for the next item, so if we
For
can just.
Jim L?
Yeah, if we can just wait till we clear.
Sure,
the
we'll
room.
let everybody file out, that's fine.
Squeezing. Well, sometimes we put them really close with the area. You know, when the city's there. If I could, this was back right here. Yeah. Get about these.
We will be continuing our meeting here, so if you want to take your discussion out, that'd be great. Your people are
They're
here.
coming, they didn't get in the door. Sorry. There we go. Didn't want to start without them.
No, I just didn't see anybody back there. All righty, go ahead with item number 12.
Okay. Item number 12 is an amendment to conditional use permit 09-12, and this is conditional use permit 13-10. The petitioners are Gem L Incorporated, who are have a manufacturing plant on the property. The owner is here, Dennis Tilden, and we have Gary Schweitzer from Gem L and Dan Gary from Gem L here as well. So the petitioner applied at our request to amend their conditional use permit. They have a business there that manufactures equipment and machinery and trailers for farming and trucking industries. It's located west of Rowena. Right next to this location is the Red Rock Bar. This used to be the Tilden Carpet Building. North of that is the 24-lot Preston Place residential area, and then you can see also the mine operation there on the picture from Roland Roy's. The reason that we asked that they reapply for this conditional use permit is they were not meeting some of the conditions on the original permit, which they somewhat inherited, and the two biggest areas were for customer parking and outside storage, and so that's what we're here to talk to you about today. So this is the site plan that was submitted by the petitioners, and you can see the lettering there, A, B, C, and D is what that they are proposing for areas for meeting their parking requirements, and then also for their outside display areas for what is predominantly the trailers that they have on the site. After we looked at this site plan, the details were a little bit lacking as far as what each section would be specifically used for. And so staff did a review and also prepared another site plan, which we did send out to the petitioners as well. And at that time, Gary and I were in contact and had some more discussions on different things that they would like to see and have happen on the property. I'm not going to specifically go through items 1, 2, and 3 that are listed because they are pretty much meeting. This is a great place to have a business. It's zoned for industrial use. This business should be in that type of area. So the two things to focus on are parking requirements and then the outdoor storage. So this is a site plan that staff prepared, And looking at this, the red areas were specified as no parking areas. The red line or red hatched area that goes through the middle all the way from end to end is actually a access easement that is on the plat, and I have to flip by the plat, but that is required to be left free for access. We looked at the number of parking spaces that were required for this type of business, and if you look at the square footage of the property, or for the buildings, which is over 12,000 square feet, it would require 42 parking spaces. We then took a look at the number of staff that are employed here, which is 20 full-time and part-time employees total, and felt that the 42 spaces was far in excess of what was needed. And so we were recommending 26 spaces, parking spaces needed on this property, plus one handicap parking space. And so we outlined those in yellow. You can see kind of designated blocks there for the parking. The other issue is the display of the trailers, and on this map we are showing those as the long kind of light yellow oblong boxes there on the east side of the property. We're showing 8 at that site. And the petitioner does have some changes that they would like to make to that number requirement. So what I want to do, and then the outside storage, I'm sorry, before I get farther. They did not specify on their plan any place for outside storage. Eventually, after I sent an email to Mr. Schweitzer, he misunderstood the email, and we did eventually get back together and discuss outside storage. So, sorry, I have a number of sheets of paper here, but if you would take the one, we emailed this out, and I also put a copy there for you. It's the one I sent out about the discussion I had with Gary and some of their concerns. And I put one on the table tonight in front of everybody before you part. Some of you were there.
We got plenty of paper.
I know. And I think there might still be a few
Says item
up
12,
here.
the white one.
Yeah, it starts with a little paragraph.
It's a loose
item
piece.
It's a loose piece, Wayne.
Loose, sorry.
Thank you.
And if Wayne, if you, here we go, Susie, we got one.
I
I kind
have a
of,
couple questions about the map, just looking at it here. So does that drive-through connect up to the Red Rock driveway, is that, and then the stuff on the south side, or behind the buildings, is that the lot line, or is it the second red line that's the lot line? Yeah, right
this
there.
is the lot line.
Okay, and what's the second line, 60 feet south?
I don't know.
Okay.
That one I don't know.
I think that's if I can answer that. That's the part there is the part that what's it? That
Merlin Royce had purchased it at one time thinking that they were
Access.
going to use it for a
Okay.
driveway, but they never did.
What is the green area?
Okay, I'll get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's late.
That's okay. The reason I wanted to move to this sheet is these are the conditions that are probably in dispute between what was written in the staff report and from the petitioners. And so I pulled those out so that we could focus on those. And the first two just talk about the site plan and the date. And so I just want to make sure if we make changes that we do change the date on that. And so the petitioners are aware of that. If we look at items 6, 7, and 8, those all talk about the parking requirements, specifying the 25 parking places plus the 1 handicap space. And we requested that they all be delineated for the 26 spaces. There has been some problems on this property of knowing where the parking areas actually are, given the number of employees and the number of trailers and their movement on the property. And so we asked that they be delineated. The petitioner would ask that they not be delineated, that they have some flexibility. They do like to move the trailers around, put them on different spots of the lot for sales purposes and to display them. And so they would like to change that. Mr. Schweitzer also told me that they do have employees that park at the Red Rock Bar in their lot, that property owner does allow that. However, from a zoning standpoint, we can't consider that because it's owned by somebody else, but they do have overflow parking for that. And then also they are in the process of, or may have already marked the handicap spot. They were going to buy the sign and get that up. So the other display issue or parking issue is the trailers. And that is number 9 here, the 8 semi-trailers and the 5 semi-tractors. When we did this map, we took the trailer size to be 53 feet. Here at Jamel, they only manufacture between 22 to 48 feet trailers. So ours were a bit long, and they also are much better at parking these trailers. So they are asking for an increase in the number allowed. The estimate is they usually have around 16 to 18 trailers on site. Right now they have 22 or 22 trailers. And of course this varies by season to how many they would actually have on the site. They don't think that the number of trailers is a problem. Usually they have somebody probably pulls their trailer in for repair or brings the cab in, and the cab may sit there while the trailer's being repaired and then it leaves. So the number 10 then goes to the green lines. There is a requirement to meet the setback, actually not be anything parked in the highway setback or on the township road. And then the green line is the 15-foot setback that is set by the zoning ordinance required to remain open. And so that's why we show that separately. And working with Gary, they have moved most of their trailers. They weren't sure exactly where that property line was. We provided some measurements, and I think that they are pretty close to where they're not parking in any of the right-of-ways. The last 2 items, or conditions, number 11 and 13, look at the outside storage and the unlicensed vehicles. So number 11 specifically specifies no unlicensed vehicles or dismantled vehicles or equipments or parts displayed on the property. Understandably, they are not licensing these trailers that they are selling, and nor are we expecting them to, but we would like to add to this that to accept out the equipment or the trailers that are being manufactured on the site from the licensing requirement. While they're for sale on there, there's no need for them to be licensed. Number 13 is the outside storage. And when Jamel took this property over, no outside storage was allowed. There is a problem with storage on the site. They've been very successful, and that's kind of led to some cramping on the site for them. They did construct here at the west side of this building. They put a new storage shelving unit, I don't know what else to call it, that's in there. So that has helped. And then also this adjacent building, they have rented one of the storage units in there to help with storage. But they still feel that they need outside storage. Currently they have outside storage along the back of the building, and they would like to continue to use that. And then also somewhere in this area, kind of on this end of the building, they do have racks for tires, and then also they have pallets that they do get picked up, but it's not a daily pickup, so they have a storage. They store them outside until their pickup service comes to take those pallets away. And so they would like to address those as well. And then they would also prefer not to have to fence any of the outside storage. So those were the differences on what was recommended, and then what Gary and I had discussed. And I would like to have him, give him a chance to come up here too and explain some of those changes. Before we do that, I do have some pictures, and I'd like to thank Ryan for going out in the drizzle for me to take these today, so that I didn't need to. So this is starting from the west side of the property. This is the adjacent storage building. And I will say that they have done quite a bit of work to clean up the property, and it looks a lot better than it had earlier this year. This is just some of their vehicles that are parked here. This would be at the end of the storage building. There's their new storage unit that they've built and constructed. And then again, we're just kind of going down the driveway here, traveling to the east. And you can see these are some of the trailers that they have constructed and have parked on the site. And this was just a shot that shows that they are pretty much off the right-of-way of the 50 feet, and then the 15-foot.
Is that green area there, and is that kind of the grassy areas, that's that 15-foot thing?
Well, yeah, it's part of it's the right of way for the state highway, and then part of it's our 15-foot there. And then you can see they have the trucks lined up and kind of showing too the different kind of equipment that they have out there. And then in this one you can see in the back they do have some outside storage there, and then this is just kind of a shot through there, and then here's some of their outside storage, which is on the east side of their building, at the end of the building with the pallets and equipment. And then again towards the back, not behind the building, but in their loading dock area, they do have some more outside storage stuff. Whoops. And then this is just looking back at the site from, we'd be looking to the north from the township road. And again, a further shot back from the township road there. And then there you can see some of the outside storage issues there for them. And then behind, this would be behind the building, which backs up to a field at this point. You can see the racks for the tires and some of their axles and other equipment parts they store behind there. And again, the trailers, where we have a lot of shots here. This is from the other end looking to the west. And nicely parked. And so, yeah, it's fun. Again, the parking along the building, which we did account for in our parking plan. So I'll just go back to the start. So I would be happy to answer any questions, or if you want to hear from one of the petitioners here first, that would be fine too.
Pat, first of all, it looks like you've been very generous with your time trying to figure out their plan and laying those things out. So,
Well, thank you. It's not just me, but thank you.
Yeah,
Except
well,
for everybody.
The staff normally did that much work for an applicant, so that's great. But, so this storage building, it's within the area that's in the conditional use.
I'm sorry. Yes, it is. It is under the same property.
Okay, and is it under the
No.
applicant's control?
No, it is owned by the owner of the property, Dennis Tilden.
Okay, so
He rents out the units, and they have rented one from him in the storage building.
I see. Okay.
So, excuse me, if I have a question. So, because as I just look at your picture, this stuff's got to be screened. That's the end of the discussion. I mean, we require everyone in this county who has this type of thing screened. And I know it's a nice facility and all that, and of course it's right along Dustin's Red Rock corridor, so we have to be very careful what we do.
Right, and I will say, we did not enforce those requirements of the Red Rock corridor. They would be a lot strict, or more strict, or however you say it, but because it's an existing business, we did not enforce those newly adopted requirements.
One more, if I may. Pat, were you saying then that the Red Cross hashed areas where you want no storage, correct?
That is where at the time they applied, they did not specify outside storage, so we were not allowing anything in the red hatched areas. This area that runs along here could not have storage. That's the designated access way on the plat. And part of this area in here, the zoning ordinance specifies on the loading dock, you have to leave that free too.
Right.
That's kind of more this area. The rest, I think they would like to use behind the buildings for.
And is that okay to use
outside
that, or
storage.
because you have the red with the lines through that, was that on purpose?
Well, that, we wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, that's what they're requiring, asking for in our discussions after we'd written the staff report and sent it out. We had further discussions, and so.
Is there a rear lot line then that the red line further to the south? Is it 0? What's the setback and the rear yard setback?
It's 10 feet from the building to the lot line. That was the
So
setback
basically,
requirement.
they want to use storage right up to the lot line?
Mhm.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
wanna make sure
yeah.
that's clear.
And then I'll let them explain, their reasoning on the fencing and everything. But
Sure.
just
All
wanted
right,
to-
Madam Chair. Are we, maybe I should make a point here. Mr. Schweitzer called me last Thursday and asked me to come down to the site. It is in Sioux Falls Township. I went out and visited the site on Friday morning. They voiced some of their concerns, and all I did was listen to what their concerns were. I had a question for you. On the amount of any of the trailers that we required a certain number, are we willing to compromise with that number at all?
Yeah, I think especially when we learned that a lot of them are much shorter size, so honestly they can fit more in there. I think 22 is too many, but I think 8 is too few. I think there's a compromise in the middle there.
Okay, and the parking places, like what you're saying, those should be at that exact number?
They need to meet, yeah, that they need to meet. That's an ordinance requirement which we have actually reduced. The question is,
how many employees did you say there was?
20. The question is how to delineate them. The ones along the building front there are, that's pretty easy. It's the other ones that they want to be flexible and move, and we need some way to know that they actually are providing all those spaces as the requirement. So, and Gary or Dan or whoever's going to speak may have an idea on how they could do that. So,
quick question.
I'm sorry, Bonnie, were you done?
And I would also say too that Gary did let me know that Bonnie was out there too. So.
On the south side of the buildings, are those propane tanks then? Those little dots?
There is a tank back there. I don't
There's
know if
3 of them
they
that
are
I see.
full.
Can
I'll
I
have
speak for a
Gary
second?
add that, or Dan.
That
speak
is
on
an
that.
old picture. There used to be 3 LP tanks back there. Now there is only currently 1, and it's down between the storage building and the very west end. It's a
kind of right down in
1,000-gallon
here.
tank.
There could have been cars parked there for all
Yeah.
I can tell here.
Okay.
Any other questions for Pat?
Yeah, sorry, one more. The driveway then, this red cross-hatched area that jogs along
Yeah.
around the building. Did I see on there, is that 23 feet wide? Do you remember the width of that, or was I reading?
That sounds about right. And I have the flat. I can read this. 24 foot.
24?
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. I think that's it, Pat. Okay, the petitioner. State your name and address, please.
Gary Schweitzer, my address is 216 South Country Club Avenue, Brandon, South Dakota. I guess to clarify one thing that was talked about there, the storage on the back of the building, that storage, we really don't put much back up against the fence. It's all up against the building, so we have clearance to get by with the forklift to come and grab the tires, grab the axles and stuff, so it's all up against the building. It's really pretty much out of sight. And that's what we have it back there for. I guess regarding the fence, I understand your comment, but we just put up a nice new fence that we bought with the neighbors that have the agricultural land behind us, the rights. We bought it, they put it up. There is no one behind us for a mile. And when you get to their land...
I'm not talking about screening the back. It's behind the building. Nobody cares.
Okay.
I'm talking about the stuff on the east end.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, there's very, very little there, but okay, I understand your concern. There isn't much there. There's a couple of pallets sitting there right now because we just got a new piece of equipment in, and that stuff's going to be leaving. There's not much out there. That's not behind the building.
Gary, I was just wondering, I understand why you might not want to delineate the trailer parking spaces, but why would you be opposed to delineating customer parking or employee parking spaces?
Well, the idea is that we want the flexibility to have trailers parked there sometimes, moving your product around, and then the employees will be parking down where the trailers were before. We want to have that flexibility to move that stuff around. That's kind of good sales. One of the things we do is we occasionally plug in those trailers because they're pretty well lit. They look really sharp, and we plug them in and leave the lights on all night, and we move those around, so it brings in a lot of people.
Well, would you rather have your trailers over there and your employee parking over there?
No, we want to be able to move it back and forth. That's what we're, that's all part of, if you go to a car dealership, look what they do. I mean, they're moving stuff all the time. that's, and I understand we have to have that many spaces, but we have an agreement with the Red Rock that the employees park down there. They actually like that because it makes them look like they've got business during the day, so they get people to come in. Plus, we have a great relationship with them. Dan moves all their snow for them. We've got a tractor with a snow blower on it, and it's always been a good relationship.
So are you indicating you really don't feel like you even need the 25 or 26 spots that Pat said?
We definitely don't, but I understand the requirement.
So if you were going to move them around and not delineate them, were you still going to maintain that number of parking spaces?
I'm not sure what you mean when you say maintain them, because...
Well, so that you didn't have trailers down there and up there, that you still had the 26 spots available.
Yeah, well, I think we will. Yeah. I mean, we'd have spots.
You understand what I'm asking you, right?
Yes, but
Okay.
I mean, we'll always have that many spots to park vehicles.
On site?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any problems with that. Again, I understand it's a requirement. We'll never have that many. We're max for employees right now for the building we have.
But you have customers that park too, right? No.
We have one, if we have 2 customers there at a time, we're a manufacturing business.
All right, got it.
Yeah. Well, our biggest challenge when it comes to that is delivery trucks.
Does anybody have any other questions for Gary?
I do. Gary. And I just talked to Pat about this. They're requiring you on number 9 to have, it says a max of 8 trailers.
Right.
And even when I was out there last Friday, there was more than 8 trailers.
Yeah,
sitting along there.
and Pat's
What
new
kind of numbers
letter
are we
that
talking?
she sent out now has 16 to 18 in there. And, I guess, and I guess the way we feel is if we can park the trailers in there and we can make it look nice, we're not sure why that number is important. And we stay off the buffers, and if we can do that, and again, right now is a bad time for us. We've got conveyor trailers that have come back for repair and warranty work, and we're trying to get some more conveyor trailers built in addition to our other trailers. We got max right now. In a month, we're not going to have that many out there. It's just a bad time for us right now. I shouldn't say that. It's a good time. Got a lot of business. We want the property to look nice. We've done a lot to make it look nice. We put up that storage unit on the east or the west side. We rented a spot from Dennis. We had times where we had stuff sitting out in front of the building. We didn't like it. We want it to look nice. We want it to, that makes business for us if we can make it look professional, and we do our very best to do that.
Maybe a couple of comments that might linger or drift into a question. First of all, congratulations, you're here because of your success trying to find space.
Thank you.
You're really, like 10 pounds of sardines in a 10-pound can. You have no, growth, right? I guess I'm kind of the opinion, in terms of the number of trailers for the rest of the commissioners is, I don't care, but they can't be in the pathway, the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
You need that for emergency access and those types of things. You need that for your customers.
Yep.
And they can't be in the setback. So I'm not sure if the economy changes and you start making 12-foot trailers, and we've got a limitation on the number of trailers, it doesn't make sense. But if you can reasonably park them, they're not in the setback.
Mm-hmm.
They're not taking any of your 26 employee parking spaces, your customer parking spaces, or this driveway that needs to be maintained. Then I might see a path forward to just saying we don't need to deal with that aspect. But I'd like to hear from you how you might delineate that pathway so that we don't have an enforcement issue later on where that pathway is not there because you got trailers creeping into it. Are there ways that you could put up those the reflective orange deals that stick in the ground and are easily removed that say this is the pathway that you go through? The 26 parking spaces. Why not go out and buy 26 yellow rubber curb stops that delineate this is the parking space, and you pull up to it, as you normally would in any parking stall. I think you're going to need a way to say this is the parking area, this is a driving area, and this is my display area. You're asking for a tremendous amount of latitude to be able to say we're going to move it back and forth. I don't know that we've ever said that the spaces aren't delineated in some fashion. So I'm trying to find a path forward to give you what you want, but you're asking for a lot.
And I know what you're saying, but I guess the way I would address that is everybody that parks out there is our employees.
Right.
We say, guys, we're moving our trailers today, you're parking over here.
Yeah, but as an enforcement standpoint then, later on we come back out, right?
Yeah.
Because we think you've really kind of made a mess of your driveway. I want to go count the 26 spaces. Do we have to go get 26 cars to prove that we can do it? If you got the curb stops, I know you got the spaces. It's almost, it requires you.
But then every time we go to move trailers, we got to move curb stops.
A little bit of an inconvenience, but I'm hearing it might be a little bit more flexible than us saying you can't move them. What would you rather have?
Okay.
I'm just asking, do you have a method to delineate those spots so that we can, from an enforcement and that pathway? If you can do that, then I'd say, well, I don't need to, as a commissioner, I don't need to mess with the number of trailers.
Okay.
And your answer is?
I don't know how to answer that because I don't know why it's important. I'm going to be open and honest.
Sure.
with you.
Well,
I don't see the need.
Right. The setbacks are providing a green space and
I understand that.
And an aesthetic appeal on a very important thoroughfare. I think from a emergency access standpoint, we want to be able to enter and exit your location. And if you've got it all screwed up with vehicles and stuff, scattered hilter-kilter, for the same reasons you want your display to look attractive, we want our community to look attractive.
Absolutely.
So that's why you delineate spaces and you have a pathway.
And I didn't address that. We have a pathway all the time. We have to have a pathway all the time because we have delivery trucks coming through every day. We can't have it boxed up. It's impossible for us to have it boxed. And as far as understanding the emergency, Dan's on the Split Rock Fire Department. He understands that, and he, that has never been an issue. We have a
God forbid it isn't an issue. Yeah, you haven't had a fire yet, right?
No.
Good.
Any other questions for Gary? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that what your comment about Pat, she was great to work with. I really appreciate it.
Does anybody else in the audience want to make any comments?
Good evening. My name is Dan Gary. I'm the owner of GML. I would just like to add a few things. We certainly understand that we need to keep the driveway through opening for the different reasons. We have trucks coming and leaving all the time that come to pick up trailers. Typically, you're saying 26 foot. I would say that we have more than that because what we tried to do is angle them trailers in, and we're always talking somewhere in the 40 to 48 foot trailers, our standard trailers. We offered a lot of 28s and stuff. But we need a lot of space to get them in and out of them spots, okay? And so, what we're asking is that, yes, we want to make sure that we maintain that buffer. We know that that's important. And we also understand that we need to keep the driveway open. When we were talking about moving things around, is like in the front of the buildings, on weekends and stuff when we're not open, that's when we like to back a trailer up along that north side of the east end of the building there. And it's a really nice display area, okay? Now, obviously, we can't have Monday morning, we move that trailer before the employees come in and stuff. So we've done that several different times that we have done that. But what we're concerned about is that when you're saying that we can't park trailers in that particular, it ties our hands as far as our displaying stuff and things like that. And then just to give you a little background, we spent almost $70,000 between cleaning up the back of the building, which was nothing more than a uneven, couldn't mow it, trees that were, okay, right, mice, rats. We went in there and we concreted that whole area, paved the front of the area, which our intentions is eventually to take the paving all the way out to the buffer zone. And if that was done someday, then I could see us doing some striping for parking lots and stuff like that. But obviously with gravel some of that stuff's not an option, you know. And so, with that being said, if you have any questions for us, I mean, we will.
Yeah, he made a comment there just that on the weekends, do you put trailers in that drive space?
No, that's, you mean you're talking to the east of the building?
If you have a fire on a Saturday or Sunday, you're not
No, that is open all the time. And we understand the importance for that. No, that's.
I just heard it
Okay,
wrong.
no, I'm
because it
sorry
sounded
if I
like
didn't
you-
clarify
like
myself
off
there.
the northeast corner of the building there, that you pull trailers in there.
What you were saying is that you only park trailers in there when you're not open.
Basically, yes. We've had occasionally where we've had a trailer along the buffer on the south side of the west end of the building where it still does not interfere where our employees are parking, and still there's plenty of room for trucks to come through. And again, our type of business, if we see 1 or 2 customers a week, that's, I mean, because we're selling to dealers, okay? You can't come purchase a trailer from us. You can come and take a tour. We'll be more than glad to, you know, show you through the plant and stuff like that. But we're not going to sell it directly to you unless, okay?
Madam Chairman, okay, so gets back to what Lane says. Okay, you got 26 spots there in the yellow. Why not have 26 curb stops there? You can park trailers in there the weekend. Who cares? You don't have to move the curb stops. It's done.
Well,
Or
if
just
you
pour
do
curb
that,
along, or just
how
pour
are you
curb
going to
along there and put
maintain the
stripes.
grass? How are you going to mow the lawn and stuff like that? I
Well, that's why you
mean,
can put just a concrete curb along there and just paint the stripe on the curb. Just delineate.
I think what we're really trying to prevent is seeing you again in 6 months because we gave you the leniency of putting wherever you wanted to, and every time they went out, there wasn't any parking spaces for your employees.
Trying to avoid an enforcement issue.
And then we have to revoke your conditional use permit, or
We're not as good the second time around, so that's what she said.
we don't like to see you back here because you didn't play by the rules.
no, and we understand that and we appreciate that, but there's just, we have to have some flexibility as far as, you know, like
And pour
currently
curb
right
stops
now,
like
we don't
that.
have much snow. When we have snow and stuff, we have to make, and then, you know, we pick up the phone and we tell Mauer, you got to get some trailers out of here, stuff like that. Gary's made that call many times where he says, we got to have some trailers out of here, okay? And they respond very quickly. I mean, usually when Gary makes the call, if we don't see a truck that same day, we will definitely see one within the first 2 or 3 days from that call. And they'll start dragging them out of there. But you have to remember, these trailers go in all different directions. Some go to North Dakota, Montana, and if we ask them to take them out of there early, then they go back to Spencer, Iowa, and eventually they probably come right back by the shop again as they're going west. So.
All right, any other questions for Gary? Or Dan? We're done to Dan. Okay, thank you. Did anybody else want to make any comments? No? Okay.
Question for staff, if I may.
Okay.
So, what do you think of my crazy idea of not putting a restriction on the number of units? I was, but
I'm comfortable with that. I mean, that still, the most important part is we have to meet the zoning ordinance requirement for parking. We can't waive that. That's a law.
right.
I mean, just like any other law, speed
Yep.
law or whatever, so, if they can delineate it, and I don't know if it has to be, I don't care if it's cones and a rope that they can move, then, you know, from one end to the other, but something that we know that they've provided the parking that limits the number of trailers that can fit in, and
Does it matter to you that they park in the employee spots on the weekend?
no, they don't have a need for those spots on the weekend, so that wouldn't be an issue.
I don't know why they do that. You got a lot of farmers out in northwest Iowa going on that highway every weekend.
Mhm.
I don't have
Oh,
a
yeah.
problem on weekends either.
Yeah, I mean, you could say during business hours or
Right.
You got this motion figured out, maybe?
For the
Looking
conditions.
It says 25, but I think we were talking about 26 spaces. Is it 26 or is it 25?
well, it's 25 and the one
25 and a
handicap with
handicap.
parking.
One hand-
I think
gotcha.
you've taken care of the handicap very close to it, so, yeah, it's a total of 26, one has to be handicapped.
Wayne's wordsmithing it, so we'll let him go to work.
Question for, I guess, the commission of thoughts on the storage. I agree with the stuff that's on the east and west ends of the building, but you definitely need the storage. But you're going to give them the backside too, outside storage without screening?
Yeah, we were all dealing
It's
with
a long ways away. I just wanted to add before I make a motion. And then we have a,
If Merle's raised complaints, we'll think about it.
okay. So.
And I will say that I did hear from RJ Wright today, and, because he got notice and he had no concerns about the business or anything.
Oh, he's like farmer to the south.
Yeah.
Somehow we know some of these guys in there. There's cows in the pasture.
Can I ask a question? And I'm going to stand up and point at the map here.
Oh, sure.
Couldn't they delineate some parking spots in this area here?
They could. I mean, we just put the 26 on and tried to make them fit in the best way that we thought. They can delineate them where they want. We just need to have. They like to put trailers there too.
And I guess additionally, what about driving through here and parking back there? No?
Part of that has to be, it can be used for storage, but it can't be used for parking because it's technically their delivery area.
They're loaded, there's a loading.
There's a loading dock there, but if they want to have storage there or their trailers, but
Okay.
right now I think
That's
it's
where it
mostly
looks like
storage. Cause
if I work there, that's where they make me park.
All right, well, so I'll make a motion to approve with the staff recommendations with these alterations to the stipulations. Would be, I guess, the first one, number 9. So we strike a max of 8. So it says that semi-trailers and semi-tractors, so scratch the 5 semi-trailers, shall be allowed to be displayed at any time on the property, that all tractors and trailers on display shall be fully fabricated and ready for sale and transport. So that portion is still necessary. Number 13, that no materials, supplies, similar products associated with, let's just say no materials, supplies, or similar products.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be associated with the facility. I don't want anything, whether it's for them or not,
Okay.
be allowed outside on the west, north, or south ends of any structure. Also, and so we scratched the last sentence, which basically is giving them the rights to store on the south side of the building, right? And then I just maybe add a 19, that the drive area be clear at all times and delineated.
And if I could go back to 13 and for Gary, that's the one that has the no outside storage of materials. Perhaps we could say that outside material, or any storage outside is required to be fenced, except for, I think it was right behind the buildings. I don't know, Mike, you were the one that raised that, so I don't know if you
Building's
too.
the screen there.
Yeah, it could do, I guess it could, as long as it's screened, it can, you know.
Yeah, except for behind the building.
You know
It
my
would
intent,
have to be
right.
screened. Okay,
Yep.
that's your intent, basically,
Yep.
okay.
Yep, we're on the same page.
Okay.
You guys comfortable with that?
They want to add on that.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to deal with the 26 spaces. I think it's gonna be an enforcement issue for you.
Well, and then number 11, at the request of the petitioner, we agreed if we could put the exception that they don't have to license the trailers. I mean, that's at this point.
Unlicensed vehicle. Yes.
Yeah.
When they're in new condition. they're-
Truly manufactured.
Right. That's kind of sloppy, I apologize.
Okay, and then with your indulgence on 4 and 5, which was the dated site plan, if you would allow us to prepare a new site plan and we'll have Gary or
Oh,
Dan come
absolutely
in.
not.
We'll sit down and we'll just,
Yes.
we'll just both initial that we agree on
Sure,
it. And,
got it.
and
Yep.
so that way we have it all covered on one
I
site.
think that's a great idea.
Okay. I want to make sure we covered everything else. So. I think so. I think that was all the items that got pulled off. So.
Notice I didn't say that the parking spaces can be moved around. They need to be in a designated space. I think you just gave them a heck of a lot of flexibility because I agree that you probably aren't going to run out there on weekends when they aren't open and enforce that they got a trailer park there.
No.
Hearing that, I think we should require that they be delineated, and that's why I didn't.
And they don't have to be, I mean, they can figure out the plan, it doesn't have to be to our specifications, but we'll sit down and figure it out together.
Got it.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I would like Jeff to read that back to me.
All right, thank you. And then I think, let's see, so we just have old business, nothing, new business, chair and vice chair.
Yes, if you want to change chairs, if Susie is tired, or she's doing a wonderful job, but if Wayne feels he would like to
What am I doing?
take it over, chair and vice
it's a
chair.
chairman thing, huh?
Yeah, we just
Chair and
leave
vice
it
chair.
basically up to you. I mean,
I don't care.
once you start it, you can serve for years as Don did, or.
Forever, as far as I'm concerned. Because, you know, if
I could do it for 10 more meetings.
I would say that sometime during the next
We want
4
you
years,
back.
I'd like to be chairman 1 year.
Maybe this is.
Do you want it this year, Mike?
I think so.
This is your out, quick.
Seniority
I am
here.
going to be out in 10 meetings.
Yeah, after you're done.
You're
Okay.
not.
No.
Okay.
It's
Then,
been fun.
do you need a motion then?
No,
Okay.
we don't have any bylaws,
All
so
right.
however you want.
Then, the last
All
item,
happy to stay, that's great.
I wanted to introduce our new county commission liaison, Jeff Barr.
Welcome.
And trial by fire, we had a whole packed room.
Wow, I wasn't anticipating that.
So, welcome on board.